Good evening. Welcome to our Finance Committee meeting. This meeting is held in accordance of the of Information Act. The news media has been notified and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. This meeting is open to the public and the public is welcome to attend in person. All persons wishing to attend the meeting by virtual means may do so via YouTube, Sumter School District Board meeting, and School Board District's Facebook page. Vision: Sumter School District is committed to educating, empowering, and enriching the lives of all students to reach their full potential. Mission: the Sumter School District is committed to provide safe, nurturing, and high-quality educational environment that supports diversity and equips students for local and global success. Members is myself as the chairman of the Finance Committee, Ms. Tara Kusar Johnson, is not with us at this time yet, and Mr. Jeff Zell. Welcome. Subcommittee members is Mr. Paul Robbins. He will not be able to meet with us today. Mitchell Williams and Mr. Mike Kramer. Executive office members are our superintendent, Dr. William T. Wright, and Ms. Spearman is the chief financial officer. And and if this time, at this time we're going to go ahead and take a pause as for a reflection or prayer. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, you here?
I'm here, Keith.
Okay,
How you
doing good. Thank you, Mr. Williams, for attending. And
Yes, sir.
we'll just take a time to take a minute for pause or prayer. Thank you. And if we can stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The meeting is called to order. And just a quick opening remarks is today, well, I want to welcome everybody today uh, to this Finance Committee meeting. And pretty much is eh, the fiscal year budget, the 24-25 year budget. I know Ms. Spearman is getting it ready, so we're basically getting an overview what to expect. We're not going to really get into the weeds, but to get an idea of what we're looking for to get prepared for the next school year. Um, and also, we're going to go over into a little bit of the procurement process. Hopefully, we got an update on what's going on there, and hopefully, everything's implemented and we're ready to roll. But I want to thank everybody, and this is an extremely important um, meeting to make sure that we're prepared to go into next school year. With that being said, I'll go to 2.1, approval of the agenda. Anybody have any issues with the current agenda for tonight? Nothing being said, the agenda is approved, and we're going to get right into it. Miss Spearing, you're leading us on and getting us ready, and we're excited for you to be here. It sounds like the 23-24 seems very successful. Like now we're coming down to the end. We hadn't had any issues, no nothing that I'm aware of, and I think 24-25 should be pretty much the same. But we're probably getting to like big projects that we may see in the future, and I'm sure that you're probably going to go into that tonight. So the floor is yours.
Is the, thank you. The 24-25 school budget, as we build this budget, is like I explained before, it's like putting pieces of a puzzle together. And so that's where we are. As far as the timeline, of course, I cannot get into the weeds due to our policy and the board policy regarding that. But I did want to at least let you know where we are in the timeline. The timeline still remains true. We have determined the standard staffing sizes. Um, I think we did about 24-25 to 1 on all of the middle to upper grades, and did a lower one about 22-23 to 1 on the smaller, younger classes. So that is the standard that we have utilized, and we're going through those still as far as what each school will need to meet that. We are considering the ones that are on any priority or any watch list for those schools that need additional assistance before we just make that cut. So we talked with each school, each principal, and what they needed. And so we're trying to make sure that we incorporate that into the budget. We also did the salary and benefit projection. We do have a number regarding that, but we are still finalizing the salary study numbers. So we want to get a good number for that. And again, as you build a budget, revenues and expenditures will continue to change. And so we just have to keep our hand on that pulse as it changes. So the next piece is the meet with department heads. I've already begun that process. I have to complete that process. That is going to tell me what do we need at the high level of this organization, and those costs that the district takes care of, because there are many costs that the district at the top level takes care of, and we need a good estimate for that. We do anticipate some areas to increase, especially anything related to mental health and nurses, that will increase. And of course, we've taken into consideration those things that are on ESSER, so we know what that will be, and we'll get into the weeds of that before the full board. Department budgets completed, again, in the process. So those last two parts are the main parts that will get us some good numbers once that process is completed. And we anticipate to have it before the executive staff, April, the end of April, or maybe be May, the top of May, at our leadership meeting. So that is the goal for that. I have gotten us a spot on the teacher advisory committee process, their meeting, to get any input from them. So we'll also incorporate that. Then we'll bring it before the finance committee. Of course, by then we will have presented to the board at least the first reading, and then we'll start bringing that into the finance committee according to this schedule. We've already taken into consideration most of the effects of the salary study. We're just doing the follow-up part of it to make sure our numbers are good. So we've pretty much done that part already. But I want to make sure we do that to fruition. Of course, the budget hearings will be going on. We constantly are getting weekly notifications of what they're doing at the legislative level. And so, of course, that will definitely impact what we do. The legal advertisement, we've already notified our communications person that we will need that to be advertised. That, of course, is required where we give the public a chance to give some input into the budget. That is a very important step, as we know that our chairman of this board advised us to do, and so we'll make sure of that. And we'll make sure that anytime we talk about the budget, that Shelley has made sure that we'll make sure that advertising is pumped up a little more than what we normally do, just to make sure we get the word out. Then we'll be ready in June, preferably the top of June, to present to our county council, and then we will bring it before the full board to say, okay, can we move forward? Can we adopt this budget? And by then, of course, those numbers will have changed. The only estimates that we have are from the House Ways and Means Committee for the revenue portion, but there are going to be at least 2 or 3 more estimates to come as we move through the process. So just know this is a moving target for us, but we anticipate to tackle it just like we did last year and to get some good numbers. pretty much. I didn't want to get too far in the weeds, but
Mr. Chair, I just have a couple questions. Uh, First, thank you, Ms. Spearman. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
I just want to remind this committee and the full board and whoever can hear my voice right now that this process is very similar to making sausage. No one wants to know how it's made. They just want to see the end result. So I just want to reaffirm and reconfirm, I believe, that everybody in this process is working in good faith and goodwill, and we all want the same things. That's effective administration of education for our kids in our community, and how we get there is largely birthed from these discussions. So I just want to say thank you for that. My first question is, and again, without getting in the weeds, I don't expect an answer right now, but one of the things that we've learned a lot over this last year, especially the board members who's never gone through this process, what it looks like. And it's not as easy as to the naked eye the general public would think. That said, is one question I feel that it needs to be asked is what will be our projection based on if there was no increase in local funding? What does our fund balance look like in the audit projection-wise in December? December, correct? Is that the big one? So yeah, that would just be something I would be interested in because that is the marker, that's the target, the bullseye the public is consistently throwing at. So I think that's, of course we have to re-educate everybody as well, what fund balance actually consists of, this, that, and the other. And I think that that's probably something that would do us some real good by getting in front of that. But anyway, that's the big question I would want to ask is what does our fund balance look like in the key months of audit? So.
okay. And just know that the financial report also has what fund balance is at each month on what it would look like if we stopped operations. And so, of course, we do want to continue to move a healthy fund balance. And we discussed that today about fund balance. And I do attend the finance meetings that they have, roundtables. I couldn't think of the word. I do attend the finance roundtables where all of the CFOs of these school districts meet in one location in Columbia. And we talk about budget and how it affects us and how we could calculate certain things and what things to watch out for. So the meeting is next Wednesday. So I will not let anything come before that meeting because I want to make sure that we are in line with that. And so one of the things they're talking about is to show the use of fund balance. They are encouraging us to utilize fund balance. Remember, fund balance is not cash. It is an accounting piece that will tell you I have more revenue over the years than expenditures, but it is an accounting number. And so to show use of that would satisfy some concerns that are out there. And so there may be a need to utilize some of that to show good faith. That's what we as CFOs are wanting to show is good faith and that we are handling our funds appropriately. But again, you want to protect it at the same time.
Sure.
So just know that may be a topic of discussion during our process.
And I think that I'd like to just want to say, that's what transparency looks like. That's what everybody wants. And I think typically suspicions go away when knowledge is presented. And so thank you for that. I'm definitely interested in further in that conversation.
Ms. Spearman, the salary study, you kind of allude to that. How, if you can give us, and it kind of goes along with this for especially next year, how this year went, is it going to affect us for next year? Do we overpredict, underpredict, where we are in that situation?
Well, we want to make sure we have enough budget to cover the expenditures, but we do have a number, and that again, we'll get into weeds and numbers. I want to make sure we're in compliance with our policy. So it does take us up in the salary piece.
Okay.
It does increase our base because we changed people's salary. So they can't make less than what they've been making. And so that salary study will determine our base level budget, what we will need. And so during that process, we're trying to make sure we have enough to cover. So of course, in priority, salary and benefits are priority number one. And then you have purchase services, then you have supplies, then you have any equipment that we buy out of the general fund. That is the priority. We're going to take care of our people first, and then we're going to move through the other things. And if we have to adjust, we have to adjust. If for some reason the expenditures budgeted exceeds the revenue budgeted, that's when you have the option of tapping into a fund balance for the accounting report. And you can utilize some of that. So our goal is to, if we don't have to, we don't have to use as much. We can show good faith. That's perfectly fine. But we're trying to make sure at the start of putting this budget together that we cover our expenditures. And that is the piece that I'm currently working on, making sure that I have accurate estimates for expenditures.
Mr. Chair? Oh,
Yes. Yes, that is correct. Yes.
well, I think that's a very clear, you know, and very transparent place to start. I think that's shows good faith just in and of itself. One of the questions I brought up about the fund balance is when, let me see how I word this. It's sort of, the question is sort of escaping me right now, to be honest, but you know what, I'll come back to it.
Projects-wise for next year, and this may be also to you, Mr. Superintendent. What are we looking at to predict an estimate for the big, like any big projects that we're looking for is going to kind of we need to be aware of that
Okay.
you guys may be aware of?
Well, you know that we do receive anywhere from $6 to $7, $8 million in the fall and spring regarding capital projects. So that is because of how our bond is financed, that we have that extra to use for projects. So we will be bringing before the board, the spring 2024 project list. And then we'll turn around, and when the fall money's available, we'll do the fall 2024 project list. And those lists will have approved by the superintendent first, and then this body, the entire body. And so that is separate monies that doesn't come out of general fund. So those things will be identified, and we get that information from the schools on what they need, and we make the priority of that, and you approve that. So that's how those projects will be taken care of. And we currently have a draft of that for the spring amount. We have the amount for the spring bond. We just have to bring it before you and make sure that we've considered all of the requests at this point.
Do you know when that is within, because we only have we have two.
Yeah, May 6th is when I'm
May
trying to
6th
bring
is-
it to
is
the
what you're
next
gonna do?
board.
Okay.
Yes, because we have the draft.
Okay.
We've got the amount, and so we've done the work of selecting those projects, and we'll bring it before the full board.
And this is another question, because I know with the legislature, they're trying to come up and increase the basic salary of the teachers. And I know you're waiting on that, and it's probably going to fluctuate all over. Do you usually basically get an estimate of, in the meantime, because they kind of have rough numbers already? Do you predict where you have, okay, I got budget A and I got budget B here in case they go on this? Do you have that type, is that basically what you
Well,
do?
what we do is Smart Fusion has an module in it that is called What If Scenarios. So we're able to drop down the proposed teacher salary, and they can tell us based on our people and the number of years that's in the system, they'll create a what if. So I already have a number of what the salary looks like based on the first version of the teacher salary scale that they proposed for 24-25.
Mr. Chair, am I jumping there? I figured out what my question was. It's in regards to salary study. So I've heard, and I can't validate any of this at all. It's just, you know, we hear a lot of things. And I understand that the salaries, and this isn't necessarily this isn't yours. This is more HR, but there is a financial piece to this, obviously. My question is, there are some there's some folks out there who feel that their particular jobs wasn't, and it's really across the spectrum. It's not, I don't think, immense amount of particular classifications, but their classifications weren't necessarily covered by the salary study as in a manner they felt it was. Some of them are part-timers, some of them are long-termers, some of them are, right, X, Y, and Z, different classifications. But my question isn't necessarily that exists, because I think that will exist when you undergo a project this large with an entity this diverse. My question is, do we have a process in place to sort of, where folks say, you know what, this, okay. Yeah, so they just, yes, sir, you want to talk to that?
So the answer is yes. The short answer is yes, but I'll do a little bit more explaining. We today, in fact, the ELT in its entirety went through requests. So we had a forum that we have open for folks to look at what they have, and if they feel like there are any discrepancies, they completed a Google Doc form that we are now looking at and going person by person to determine and give them responses. The response will be one or two things. Yes, it was calculated properly. No, it wasn't, and here's what we're going to do about it. Or I guess the third one would be we make the adjustment because of error. So. But everybody is being looked at. I'm not sure if we finished today, but we went through a good deal of employees today. I'll just say it that way. And it is all inclusive because you might imagine when we start talking about 2,000 employees, it is probably better to have everybody in the room that supervises those employees, because somebody might have some information that I may not physically have, or even the human resources officer. It's a very good process, I think, that we have in place, and so we'll get those communications out. Dr. Bain, who did the follow-up work for us, you all remember,
Yes, sir.
that she has also been very involved in creating explanations for some of the things that we ran into. So the answer is yes, we do have a process, and we're working to try to get those responses out to employees as quickly as possible.
Well, I think that's spectacular. Thank you for that. I think that will ease some anxieties if we could, like you said, if we can just get that, make sure that the folks, like Ms. Spearman said, these are moving targets.
Sure.
And every day there's more input and changes to the elements that, the weightedness of things. And anyway, that said, I understand it's a completely moving target. These things don't. You don't finish these things quickly, and if you do, usually you create more problems than you're trying to fix.
Right. I also want us to continue to remember that just as it is in the corporate world, we're still dealing with a moving target. Mm-hmm. So because it is fixed today, may not mean that it is. There's still going to be things always that we're going to have to review and look at and see what the market bears and things of that nature. Absolutely. And we kind of knew that going in, and so that's what we're working through now. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
All right.
Something that leads to my next question is inflation. How is that right now with you for budgeting is making, how hard is that? Or maybe it could be you're not having any issues with it, but are we having issues or trying to predict with inflation and the cost of?
Not so much, because it depends on what the expenditure is, that we'll up it by 2%, 5%, and we'll look at some line estimates for expenditures. We'll look at the last 3 years, maybe go out 5 years if it's really volatile, and make a best guess. Like for one of those things is electricity. It goes up and down in all ways, and so we try to make the best guess based on so all of my expenditure categories will have a basis on what was utilized to come up with that estimate. And so that's a moving target as it is. But yes, inflation, we know things go up every time, all the time, and so we utilize that in certain expenditure categories.
Thank you. Mr. Kramer, do you have anything from Ms. Spearman? Mr. Williams, do you have any questions for Ms. Spearman?
Well, I just really have one question on that inflation issue. Are you using a specific number, even though we know inflation is, all over the place? We came down from 9 to about 3.5 now, which has creeped up about another half a point. Are you guys using a specific number to hedge against that?
Well, for the ones that I've done already, I've used about five just to be on the safe side. So it'll always adjust, especially if certain other expenditures, either we may not utilize that, we may have dropped the contract, or whatever the utilization is. But yes, I've been using about 5%.
I think that's a pretty good number to be using somewhere right in the middle.
Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just a couple questions. I'm not sure if you can answer these questions. They're kind of specific. If you can't, I think it'd be useful to, let's find that number. But do we know how many students we are projecting our budget off of this year? Have we gotten to that number yet?
Well,
As that
we had a
135th day?
number when we started with the principals, and so
Okay.
that is the number that we use. And
Is that-
I
Is
can't.
that based on the 135th day enrollment?
Yes.
Okay, the
yes,
previous years,
It was
okay.
at that point. And so even then, there are some more estimates within
Of
that power
course.
school that has changed. And so I will utilize that number, the new number,
Okay.
on May 6th.
Okay,
So I'll have
great.
to go back and to see, for the May 6th budget.
Okay.
I'll utilize
Okay.
it before then. But even that number has changed.
Sure.
So I can give you that number as a follow-up on what we used when I
Sure.
met with the principals. That was the last time we got a
Sure,
report.
it's not overly pressing. I just want to make sure, for gee whiz, that is it's sort of the magic number that we use to budget schools. But, like we said, we're going into PCS season.
Right.
With our friends and neighbors at Shaw Air Force Base. And so those numbers, they can fluctuate quite a bit depending on the needs of the military. We know it. We've been a part of it very much so. So, thank you for willing to roll with these changes as they come through, minute by minute, I'm sure at times. But that's the only question I got for now.
I got a follow-up question because it kind of goes along with that question, with the enrollment. Are we predicting a lower enrollment that you're hearing? And if so, when does it kick in to, like, our federal funds that come in? Because it's based on enrollment, correct?
Certain ones, maybe. When we do that, we have to look at the allocation for Title I, and Title I gives me their estimate. And so we'll always meet with them as well to see what they're looking like on their end and what the allocation is. And they can normally tell me this is going to go down or this is going to increase or we'll get something extra or whatever the reason is. So once I meet with them, I'll know how that would affect them because they would know that better than I would.
Gotcha.
But as far as a prediction of a serious reduction, I don't see that as yet. But of course, by the time we wrap up, and depending on the numbers that the state utilizes to give us our final allocation on what that's based on, that's when I'll know what that number is, because that's the number they're going to use. So we need to utilize that same number. And so they're still doing their estimates now.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
The allocations too have already been adjusted. Teaching positions in schools have already been adjusted based on predicted drop in enrollment, and we're not talking huge numbers, but some of our schools. And then we, as Ms. Spearman said, I want to clarify a little bit. So schools that are have a classification CSI, TSI. We tried to be careful not to have them affected as more as some of the others with class size reduction. So we looked at some flexibility in those areas, but we will, our allocations have decreased because, kind of reflective of the student enrollment projections. And again, as she said, there will be new data that will come out very shortly. And we'll see how that changes from what we were working off of originally. We'll make sure everybody stays in the loop on that. It won't be drastic, but there will be some position reductions.
So I have a question on, have we looked at, if we have a lower enrollment, especially for the schools that you're talking about, have those classifications, have we looked at uh, lowering the class size in those schools to where we can have additional classes in that situation?
The short answer I'd like to give in this forum is yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I know that's the problem is we need enough teachers.
That's correct. That's correct.
So-
So typically we do that. We, good, bad, or indifferent, school districts try to make sure that we protect elementary class sizes as much as possible for obvious reasons. That doesn't mean that we necessarily overload middle and high any more than we have to, but that's kind of where the emphasis has always been with public schools. I guess what I'm saying additionally is we're just trying to be extra cautious with schools that we're trying to gain momentum in, and so. But yes, sir, we do look at possibility of class size reduction when we can, things of that nature. That's a very good point. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions. So one's actually for you. So I'm gonna put it in your ear before, and I'll let you chew on it for a minute. So now we're starting essentially day one of, I mean, take this as a grain of salt. It's a little bit of a joke. Day one for budget season for us. Okay, it's probably day 30, 40 for her. All right. So anyway, that said, so now that we're officially formally, what does it look like from here on out as far as communications with county council, that sort of thing?
That was good. Actually,
And then-
a good question.
And then I would like to ask the superintendent this next question real quick before we go. What is our main? I mean, it's something I'm sure you're going to present and show us in the budget forum meeting on the 6th. But what sort of things are we looking at this next year? Big ticket items that we're looking to fund, big projects, big focus areas.
As Ms. Spearman said earlier, we'll have a detailed list, but obviously, for me, I'll talk about this since, we'd like to get further along on our professional development complex that we've talked about, for sure. We've got to make sure that we can maintain the salary study work that we've done and so forth, and operate at that level. And as I said, allocations will offset that somewhat, but there still is going to be an increase in operational revenue. I think there might be an opportunity for us, being, that the board has begun these conversations. There might be a need to look at how we move forward facility-wise. So getting experts to come in and study us and tell us what we can and can't do and things of that nature. There probably are some other things I'm not thinking about right now, Mr. Zell, but those are kind of a few things that I think are key. The rest of it is operational and, of course, trying to figure out how to operate post-ESSER. That's a huge component, trying to figure out, how to protect the things that we know that we need. ESSER allowed us, not necessarily people say that, we pocketed all this money during ESSER. What ESSER really allowed us to do, in my opinion, is do some things that we should have been doing anyway.
Sure.
Helping with mental health component and things of that nature, providing facility upgrades and extra personnel to help us, those things. Sure. But all of us are faced with that same thing. How do we operate post-ESSER? The immediate future, is probably doable, but we've got to protect for, 25, 26, 26, 27, and beyond.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we are with that, and And I think that those conversations would certainly be ongoing.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Agreed. And if I follow, and I agree wholeheartedly. I think that, to harken back, it feels like years ago, but it was probably just several months. We need to right size this district, right? And so I think and I think we all know this, there's a sizable budget. However, we have sizable debt as well. And I think that if we could, if there are opportunities for us, and we've talked about this not ad nauseum, to where, if we can get liabilities off the books, because maybe we have surplus real estate, maybe we have, we have surplus software licenses that we're buying that we don't utilize, whatever it is, right? I think if we really analyze our expenditures, it could free up. I mean, that's sort of a universality, but, there's certainly a lot of income, but, I understand these things, and we talk about inflation as well, right? Things cost more to do business. And so, my concern is if we can, over time, manage our debt in a way that is, responsible, obviously, and I'm not saying that we're not currently, I don't know fully the process, but if we could get our debt down, if it is substantial enough to bite into operational money, I think that would really serve this district well. And I think we do that through those long-term planning efforts and master plan and all that. And so I'm saying all this because I think we need to start a metaphorical fire underneath the master plan committee. That's a shot across the bow right there. If some folks don't believe committees don't work, well, maybe it's the committee leadership that's not working their committee. And I'll just leave it at that. I feel like this transportation committee has been quite successful in a very short time because we put a lot of effort with a lot of brain power. We all aimed at the same target. We took the shot, and we are in a much better place. I think we can replicate many of those smaller successes across the industry, across the enterprise, if you will. But we have to be creative and bold when we do it. And that's where finance comes in, superintendents comes in. We all have a part of this. So I just want to reemphasize, budgeting year to year to year, we need a long-term budget. We need a long-term projection as well. So that's not criticizing anyone in this room. It's just re-emphasizing the fact that, like Superintendent said just recently, we have schools over 190 years old? That's insane. I mean, we should be talking to the Historical Society, asking if these buildings meet that criteria, and if not, why? Right? Maybe we get some history money. I don't know. Anyway, I just want to share that with you all. Thank you so much, and we're going to keep talking about it.
If I may, Mr. Chair, what I tried to just talk about are some of the, as you described, big ticket items. We're having those conversations practically every day about where we can. I mean, we just had a meeting the other day. Two gentlemen in this room reminded me of this meeting where we were talking about trying to streamline some processes and become more modern, I guess would be the best way to say it in this room. But we have to do that, yes, from an economical standpoint, but we've got to also ensure that my folks have heard me talk about this, ensure that we're operating as a mid-sized school district should. And so, to your point, we're looking at stuff every day. I didn't want to list that now because we're still developing some things, but yes, sir. Thank you for that.
So you're actually sitting down with the CFO of, okay, like we did last year. Okay, so that's awesome. I think we'll all be on the same game plan. So, when's that date? Do you know? Yeah.
Said I had to contact her.
Oh, okay.
Been in communication with our monthly tax revenue.
Mhm.
So that was about the conversation. So we begin to come and
Okay.
sit down together right now.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else have anything from Ms. Spearman or Dr. Wright? Do you have anything to comment? Anybody else?
I just have one thing,
Go ahead.
and this is my shout out to our transportation crew. Thank you, sir. I see you back there. Um, I'll be reaching out to you here in the very near future to figure out sort of, and I know you're working with the executive team, but I want to where I want to just offer up, I guess, my leverage where I can help you, whatever funding you're looking for, whatever it is. I'd like to see where your priorities are, and I know that that will all be addressed in the future, but I would like to be honest, I would like to close up, at the right time, this ad hoc committee on transportation, because I think we're at a point where we can at least start talking about that. And, but anyway, that's another discussion. But I think the more knowledge that we have, the more information that proves that point, I think the better off we're all going to be, and we can, just check in on each other every once in a while and make sure that you don't need anything. But thank you for everything y'all have done.
Thank you. We'll move on to 3.3, the procurement process, the system that the school district has purchased, and we can update on how that's going, and if it's implemented, how has that been going with the for our employees?
As you know, we started this late last year, trying to get this started. We had some issues with the vendor. They were bringing on a large vendor, and so our request was put off for several months. And then the Christmas holidays came, and so we started back up and got in touch with each other. We had a meeting on February the 21st, us and the IT department and the Smart Fusion reps to discuss the details, and that's when we presented those approval trees that they needed, those approval trees. Well, on February the 29th, my team sent them over 825 approval trees. And what we did was to develop every single way that a document of approval needed to go through. And we came out to about 825. So they are still loading those into the system. And I'm sure a lot of it was copy paste depending on the dynamics of the fund. We had to treat grants a little differently than the general fund. We had to, insert additional approvals when it was Title I or whatever you had going on. But that's why it was so many. And so they are currently working on that. We are anticipating that once that's loaded and some tests are done, hopefully we'll be ready by the start of the school year. But again, I can't determine on what their end is going to require. So we've done everything that we can do and to submit to assist in that process. And we're simply just waiting for them to give us a go, at least for a test run.
So, my follow-up question to that is this company, are they working with us? As in, it seems like, are we too big of a district for them to handle the stuff, or?
No, I think they're just trying to manage it all, and they are working with us. And whenever we have a concern or we have updates, or because we get system updates pretty regularly, they've worked well with us, with my staff directly answering any help desk questions. So they're operating fine with us. And so, this is a brand new process. We don't know what all else is going on their end. So we're just making sure that we are doing our part. And so we will ask for another update in the coming weeks, because we do want to try to have this ready for the new year, at least try to, and then we can train our people to utilize it.
Yeah, and that's a big part. We're going on to over a year on this, and
Right.
this company is giving us a lot of excuses. So I'm concerned with that, and for the future. And I love this type of program. I mean, like Dr. Wright said, we need to get up into the 21st century, not 20th century. um, and but it seems like to me is they're working with you, but it's like they're taking their time on this.
Yeah, I know, and we're kind of antsy about it too. And I meet with the bookkeepers monthly, and they're definitely ready for it to come to fruition. So we're just going to keep our hands on their temperature, and they communicate, they respond. So,
Do we have a contract with them, and is there anything in the contract that says timelines of how they're supposed to?
well, not specific to this because this is something new, but they know that we want it in place. And so we'll make it our responsibility to continue to check in with them and see what's going on, how much more they have to do, how many of these approval treats have they done. We'll try to get some information as far as that. But we don't have a problem with them. Our IT person doesn't have any issues with them. So they keep providing the support that we need.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are doing everything what you're supposed to be doing. It's just like, I mean, we got a district to run.
Oh, yeah.
and-
Oh,
And
yeah.
you're taking over a year to get this done. So, and I know a lot of companies out there that are not school districts that are be jumping up and down and say, well, what the heck? So if we can light a fire under them,
Okay?
we need to get this done and give them an ultimatum for next school year.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I add to that? I'm going to tell you just a quick story about when I was in the Air Force. So there was this program, it was called AIT, and it was this big new thing. You know, I was a bomb builder in the Air Force, and most of that, what that meant is I was a big warehouse worker with heavy items. That said, you know, we were sold this idea that we could, you know, put these barcodes on our materials and everything and scan them and bing, bam, boom, upload it and forever in the cloud, and it's going to do everything for us. The time that we bought the process to the time it was fully implemented, the software, or hardware rather, was out of date, and we had to buy a whole new system. And we're talking multi-millions of dollars. This sounds like it. So my question would be, and I agree with Mr. Plum, it sounds to me like you're asking the right questions, you're engaging, but it sounds to me like potentially a little more, a louder voice, maybe a board member or chairman of a committee or even the full board chairman could write a letter on behalf and say, hey, this is something that we need. Maybe, I don't know if that would have any impact, but maybe a suggestion.
That's why I
Sure.
was asking if there's anything. So, do we have a contract with them? Is that
Yes, we kind of pay it every year.
and part of the contract? Is there something in there that says when they were supposed to get this online for us?
Well, no, because it was a process thing. They didn't know how much time those different pieces were going to take. And so what it was just an add-on to the process, to our system. And so that was a price, a separate price. And we haven't even paid them because they wanted to do the work first.
Okay, that's at least good news.
Yeah, so the purchase order is still outstanding from last year, and the price is the same, so we're just working with them. So I personally don't have an issue. I understand the timing that you're saying, that's a
Yeah.
very valid point, but I will try to see when they can get this done and that there is a push from our board regarding.
Yeah, and tell them they can call me. I mean, like, no, this is gonna get done.
Likewise.
You know.
Well, it's a matter of efficiency, you know.
It
and,
is.
You know, if we always come back to that, we're tying up our teachers and our administration with tasks, task saturation. That happens, right? Every day, I'm sure Mr. Kramer can vouch for that, and everybody in this room. And so where we can, economically viable, we should take advantage of the technology that's in front of us. And it sounds like something that would be extremely useful if we could just, you know, maybe push them, maybe nudge them a little harder.
Yeah.
This is bigger than just this. We have many documents that move between the schools and the district. So once we see how this operates, we're trying to roll more things into
there's a bigger
this.
picture
So
to
there's
this.
a bigger picture to this. And so, you know, we're anticipating, we're very antsy about it as well. But
Okay,
I'll
because-
definitely report what you have told me to do. I will do
And
that.
I would love to ask Mr. Kramer, it's something like this process, the streamline with the administration and teachers out there. How helpful would be for the staffs at all the schools and administration?
I can't speak to it personally because I'm not involved anymore in purchasing. But I do know, I have spoken to staff members out there who are very involved, and they are very anxious, shall we say, for this to happen because they feel it would save them a lot of time and walking around, instead of walking documents, different places that it could happen a lot quicker and could be very, very much time-saving and efficient.
And that's why I've heard many time and time again, this is archaic way. I've never even heard of how to procure some of these items, and we just got to get this up and going. I know this is a big thing for you to get it up into a technology age, and we're still doing stuff that's back in the 70s. And if we can get on the phone with these guys and say, look, this will happen. This will happen at the beginning of the school year, because we are been waiting on this for over a year now. And that's a lot of trees, 825 trees, and it sounds like what you're trying to do is going to be even more stuff but that concerns me, because if we already have plans that we want to do more with it, maybe they can't handle this. So
This down, then they can be like a copy paste type thing is what they're gonna do, because some things run the same. And when we get to 3.3, I want to also talk about that, but whenever you tell us to go to the next one.
Just one last thing on it. So I was talking to Ms. Spearman before the cameras were on, and I just want to remind, just transparency, what we were speaking about. When you look at this district, and there's not a single person in this room that was around this district when sort of these things should have been happening. I mean, we're talking about procurement. We're talking about however many facilities we have that are sitting vacant, right? We're paying light bills on, this, that, and that's part of the problem. I think it's the death of 1,000 cuts, right? And like I said, is what Ms. Spearman's dealing with largely are processes that have yet really to been established. And so I just want to remind everybody that we need to be very gracious in understanding that if there's not an established protocol to follow, we need to build that internally, and that takes time and a lot of trial and error. So I just want to, that's what we were speaking about. I just want to say that, not to rehash it, but we just need to be very aware that some of the things that we're asking this district to do in extremely formal ways really hasn't been done before. And so we need to give time, grace, and attendance to that.
totally agree.
Thank you.
I totally agree with that. And it's just, I think we've had patience on this with the company.
Yep.
Sounds like you guys are doing your due diligence. And it's now time we gotta, break some glass a little bit. So,
And I'm glad to join the CFO and seeing what we can find out.
Thank you.
Just saying that way.
thank you. Anybody else I'm sorry, it was supposed to be 3.2. Anybody else on this, comments, questions? Mr. Williams? Oh, we out. Any questions, Mr. Williams?
You can't hear
Oh, I guess he's not. All right, if there's nothing else, Dr. Wright, you have anything on?
No, sir.
Okay. And for 3.3, update on purchasing and receiving supplies. Go ahead, Ms.
Of
Spearman.
course, we're still going with the original process that we have, but and that process, our auditors look at that every year to make sure that for what we have and our capabilities, technology-wise, that we're doing the best process to ensure internal control. But regardless if we're manual or electronic, they have to plan ahead. We still have to plan ahead, and we still have to ensure proper approvals. And so that is part of the problem as well. And so we'll make sure that we continue to do that. And once we change this process from manual to electronic, we will have to update our processes, our written processes, to reflect the new electronic method. So just wanted to put that out there.
Oh, I totally understand that our administrators and staff, athletic directors still need to do their due diligence and to make sure this is not going to, that doesn't make it to the point where, but I do understand that there's sometimes that last minute situations, the teams need something, and so they can immediately somehow get out there and go get it real quick with electronic process that can get done. Totally understand it, and they do. This does not alleviate their responsibility to just all of a sudden, hey, I want to get to the store real quick and let's go get it. But I do understand in emergency situations that does happen sometimes, and we need to have those abilities to be able to do that. Anything else on that, Ms. Meader? Dr. Wright, you have anything on it?
Sir, I don't. This time.
And anybody else have any questions?
I just want to add something to the closing remarks.
Go ahead. I'll just closing remark. That being said, with 3.3, we'll go to 4.1, the steps moving forward. We basically, we're just being patient and ready to go with the for next year's budget. And I think you're on the right track. And I'm sure we're going to get an updated budget in next month. And it seems like this year, overall, everything's working fine with the budget. We're not hurting for any funds at this point in time. And then hopefully we get this thing set, and then hopefully next meeting I'll be asking for an update on the procurement system. Hopefully we get a better idea of one, if it's going to be ready, and hopefully it's ready for the beginning of the school year next year, because I think you've been patient. I think everybody's been patient. I think it's time to foot stomp and say what the heck. So you had some closing remarks.
Yes, sir. I just want to make a couple announcements while I have the microphone. If you're not aware, she's probably not watching, but Miss Sam Perez of WLTX just announced today that she will be she's taking a promotion, and she's leaving Sumter. She's going to Knoxville, Tennessee, I believe it is. She's following her dream. She's been very kind to this and fair to this district, and she's been a pleasure to work with. And I can say that about all the media folks that I've worked with so far. And it just means a lot to me to have those good people, just telling the truth. And so, hats off to them. God bless them. Godspeed.
Anybody else have any closing remarks? Dr. Wright?
No, sir, I don't at this time.
Okay. Basically go to 5.1, approval of consent agenda items from January 17th, 2024. Anybody have any issues with the last agenda? All right, with that being said, it gets approved. And 6.1, I pretty much said my piece. Anybody else?
Sir, when
yes.
should we expect to see another Finance Committee meeting?
We're planning probably going to be after the May 6th,
Okay.
when she comes
Sometime in
and
May.
yeah, it's probably going to be at the end of May. Especially, I would like to hear the update on the procurement system and see what our next, if we have to do something, what's our options, because that needs to get done. So.
And the last question just has really nothing to do with anything. It has actually to do with Mr. Williams. Can we make sure, I'm not sure if he got, I sent Mr. Williams the Zoom link to this today, and so I'm not sure if it was mine or, sir, are you getting the invitations to these meetings?
Yes, I did. I got it.
Okay.
On the 16th. Just so happened this time I
Well,
couldn't see it or read it.
Roger that. Disregard them. Everything is on the up and up. Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
But I appreciate you.
You got it. Well, we need you here. We appreciate your presence.
Well, and that goes along. Thank you for attending. Thank you, everybody else, for attending. I think this was informative, and I think we're probably going to be on the right track on this for next year. And I'm going to motion to adjourn. Thank you.